The ISS is fake because there's reflections in iPads. That's what we're doing. I got this suggested through email, and I prefer Discord suggestions, but this was too good to be picky about. Let's get going.
Hey guys, it's Bling Bling. Now before you jump on the conspiracy train,
Yeah, we wouldn't want anyone to do that.
let me just say that no, this is not an all-seeing eye.
Were you sincerely worried people might think that? I'm hoping some kind of joke just flew over my head and you don't honestly think your audience is that far gone.
Let me just say that no, this is not an all-seeing eye. This is actually a photograph of me.
What, the eye?
No, not the eye. The reflection in the eye.
Oh.
You see me holding the camera?
Well, Bling Bling, it's hard to say. I see a person with their hand posed like it's pressing the shutter button of a camera, and I see a circle that could be the end of a camera lens, but the camera itself is obscured behind that circle. What are you trying to hide, Bling Bling?
You can even see my pool and some palm trees.
Wow, lucky you. It'd probably look like a nice peaceful spot if it wasn't for the background music blaring through my headphones. Wish I knew what song that was so I could subtract it. I tried using one of those music ID things, but all it found was this weird vampire ASMR track using the same music.
Disguised as a bat. I enter your room whenever I can. And hide in the folds of the curtain, or in the dark corners, watching you. But you are not aware of me. In the night after you sleep, I'm here, looking at you.
That is wonderful, but it's not what I need. I also searched the YouTube audio library pretty thoroughly, and I searched YouTube itself for royalty-free music and some free audio sites as well. Overall, I spent way too long trying to find this music because I really just wanted this atrociously loud music gone. But still no luck, so we'll just have to live with it. I think the music gets a bit less bad later. I did just notice though that the music seems a little less full and a little less loud in the right stereo channel, so I'll just use that channel and see if that helps.
The reason I did this was to show you how easy it actually is to see a reflection in a reflective surface.
Thanks. I had no idea.
This first image is a reflection from a science experiment that Serena Onion Chancellor was doing. Notice the white mask.
The white mask. Sorry, but I don't see it. All I see here is some amorphous reflection of, I don't know, some kind of equipment, I guess. Wait, hold on. Is it possible you mean this? Alright, gotcha. It's gonna be one of those videos, huh? Release your expectations and hold on to your butts instead, people. I'll just toss this definition of Pareidolia up on the screen. I think that'll cover about 75% of any debunking I'm gonna have to actually do here. It saves me repeating myself for the rest of the video. And for good measure, how about a quick scroll through the Faces and Things Twitter account, and why not the Google image search results for Pareidolia too? That should about do it. Go ahead, Bling Bling.
Here we have Peggy in her spacesuit. Notice the eye, and it's covered with a white mask.
Here's a higher res and not so blurred to hell image so we can get a better idea of what we're seeing here. And the first thing to notice is without all the details messed up like in your modified copy, what looks kind of like a weird reptilian eye in yours looks almost like nothing. It's actually hard to even pick out. But it's still there, I can still find what you're looking at. So I think this is what you're calling an eye in your image, and if that's not it, it just goes to show how unclear it actually is. But I think that's it. It's hard to say what exactly you think is going on our right side of the eye. I mean, on the left side you can see the white of the eye, but on the right side it's dark. Now whether you think that's just obscured by shadow, or if this thing has a giant iris or pupil from some alien species, who knows? Because I don't know exactly what you think you're seeing, I just drew in a weird shaped iris region that contains the darkest part of the eye, and maybe that's something close to what you're seeing. Now here's that same area highlighted on the original image, and you can probably see that it's already looking pretty bad for you. Now it just looks like a reflection of probably a bit of some light colored piece of hardware, or maybe a light reflecting off some piece of hardware, obscured by a darker piece, and a gleam of light possibly off the mic boom. The dark spots are not even anything, they're just shadows within the helmet where there's not some reflection of a white piece of the station or the suit or whatever reflecting off of it. It'd take an awful determined squinting session to combine those two bright areas that you're seeing into an eye. There's nothing to hint that they're part of the same object or reflections off the same object at all. But without determined squinting, we wouldn't have this video, so I guess that's okay. So I see no reason to think it's an eye, but without a view in the opposite direction, I'd be hard pressed to say what exactly it is. Just like like with most of the other reflections all over the helmet. However, if we look at the full image, you can see that just in there's already a lot of stuff that could be reflecting. And once you remember that she's facing the space station, there's a lot more possibilities. So I don't think I can tell you exactly what it is, but I can at least tell you the general location it's coming from if I identify a few other things in the reflections. So here, I've outlined some real objects along with the reflections in the helmet. So from this, I would guess that the light part of the eye is probably just the reflection of one of those clamp-looking things hidden in behind and maybe slightly out of frame where we can't see it. But even though there's no reason to think this is an eye, let's assume for a second that it is. What do you propose happened here? That Peggy Whitson couldn't take the selfie herself, so she had to get someone else to take it for her, but instead of there therefore being a reflection of another person and a camera, like in your picture, where you're reflected in your friend's eye, for some reason there's just a reflection of someone's eye, no other part of them, and it's reflected so big that they'd have had to be right up against the glass, which makes no sense considering that their head is not in the frame. Or maybe you think it's the eye of some oversized alien being. Regardless of whether this was taken in space or in a studio or whatever you think, do either of those explanations really make more sense to you than it just being a selfie with some stuff reflecting in the glass? NASA eyes. NASA Lee eyes. Higgy eyes, did you really eyes that?
Here's another reflection of someone in a white mask. There's the same person. It was an experiment that Thomas was doing.
What experiment? Doesn't matter, found it. It's called sloshing in space, and unlike your image, it's in full color. So I think a valid question is, why is your image in black and white? That's really strange. Let me just put some color back in. And since this comes from a video, let me also get that video going nice and slow. Oh no, the baseball cap man's reflection is made of green slime and sloshing around! What witchcraft is this? Yeah, clearly whoever made this cherry-picked the one single frame where they thought the shadows and highlights of stuff on the bottle could be interpreted as vaguely human-shaped. Then they desaturated it to hide what it actually looks like in color. The fact that it doesn't come from a reflection, it comes from the shape of the slime inside the bottle at that moment. And I think they also increased the contrast so the shadows they wanted us to see would show up more strongly. Because here's how the image looks desaturated with no further editing. Baseball Cap Man stands out much less in my version. So regardless of how you look at this, it's absolutely dishonest. The only question is, was it you who did this, or did you just find this still image of desaturated slime and get fooled yourself because you didn't bother to look into it? Are you the liar or just the fool?
Here is an image of a reflection from an iPad.
Oh my god, what's that spooky face in there?
Two individuals in masks.
I didn't watch this far before I made that last joke. I honestly thought you were going to cut to a video or something, not actually say there's a face there. Wow, so what do you see here? No, I mean here. I guess maybe I see a couple of Hellraiser monster men sucking each other's spit back and forth through a rolled up newspaper. Is that the right answer?
You can see a light travels around. Thomas is not moving. This is not a screenshot.
Clearly he is moving. I can see him moving. And yeah, we can all see it's a slowed down video, not just a screenshot.
Thomas purposely had this iPad on his leg so we could see what he was doing.
I agree with the first half of that sentence, that he purposely had the iPad on his leg. The second half, that he has it there just so we can see what he's doing, makes no sense because we can't see what he's doing in the iPad.
I'm sure of it.
Why?
For whatever reason, Thomas has on so many occasions allowed us to see the reflections.
I would imagine so. If he has a habit of wearing an iPad on his leg during live streams, he probably doesn't care all that much if you see the reflection. There's nothing there anyway, not even the spit-sucking Cenobites anymore.
Can you see it? Can you see what we're looking at right now?
My mother having sex with a serial killer? Sorry, that was for this one. On this one, bucktooth guy with a tiny skull and his eyes closed, maybe?
There's a person with a white hat on.
Huh. I'm not seeing that. Sorry. What kind of hat is it? Maybe that'll help.
Is it mockery? Does NASA purposely put these reflections in?
No, that was clearly just the random combination of several different reflections for a few frames. You can see it coming together in the video.
Does someone working behind the scenes do it?
Do what?
Why would that be there?
Because you have a human brain that's good at finding human faces and other patterns in random noise. It's especially good in your case, it seems, which isn't always such a good thing. Plus, you're going into this looking specifically for anything that looks like a face, so it's no wonder your brain sees faces everywhere.
One thing is for certain, that is very creepy.
Wait, I think I see it now. Is that it? You're right, that is creepy. I found a little more about this image in an earlier Bling Bling video, and it's pretty great, so let's check that out.
Here we have Thomas from France. Good old Tom. Yep, another iPad video. Seems strange. Thomas is always wanting to wear an iPad on his leg.
I can see why. It's probably real convenient if you can just tilt your knee up and check something. I'd do that too if I didn't have to worry about gravity.
Do you think he's trying to show us some reflection?
No.
Maybe he's feeling rather guilty. I don't know. Just seems kind of strange. Like the last video where he was hanging around the ceiling a little too long, getting a beverage container that was stuck up there.
Oh, we'll get to that. Oh, yes.
So we were able to capture the fourth wall and see who was actually videoing him. And now we can do it again.
Well, the spit-sucking Cenobites are the cameramen, are they?
I'm just quite surprised that he's doing it a second time. So we're going to be able to see some different strange people. And they're not astronauts.
Yeah, they're not a lot of things.
Now that is the original footage. I studied it frame by frame, and I have definitely see two people here. One man is on the left. He has a beard. You can see his eye. You can see his nose. He is looking at someone with a hoodie on their head, and it looks like they may have a white mask on their face.
I'm trying, but I'm at a loss here. Can someone in the comments please tell me what she's on about? Thanks.
Now, if you don't see this, you are suffering from cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. That's a new one. Also, I don't think you know what cognitive dissonance means.
Because it is very obvious that is a man with a beard. And another person with a hoodie.
Come on, can you help me out here? Maybe draw an outline or something? Because I don't think it's obvious at all. What are you even looking at?
So, don't try to argue with me, like I said. I won't stand for it. I'll just block you and delete you. I don't have time for you! We need to find out what's going on here.
Don't worry about that. It's already very clear what's going on here. Anyway, what is it with you people in blocking dissent? I've barely replied to any of you folks, and already I've seen Donia Daytona, Gina Maria, and you all saying the same thing. Don't argue with me, I'll block you. Is everyone this weak in your little clan, or what? To any Bling Bling viewer who might be watching, feel free to comment as much as you like. Your arguments suck. What do I care if people hear them?
And if you're not with us, you're against us.
That's fine. I'm against you for sure. I have no patience for this level of idiocy.
All right, let's move on.
Let's. And hopefully the next one's marginally more interesting.
It's perplexing. Why are these images constantly in these reflections over and over again?
Because you spend your free time looking through loads of images where you don't see faces in, searching for ones where you do?
Yes, I'm ready for the event.
Hartsfield Elementary School, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Did you read her lips?
No, but I'll try now. Not much to read there. One tiny mouth movement, looked like a smooch.
It worked.
I don't think you can determine that from a single context-free lip movement.
What do you think she said?
No idea, but I can try a few things. Ooh-wee. Voice check. Muted. Hold on. Go away. Or, since Tama there is French and leaving, maybe just a simple au revoir. Who really knows? Without context, it could be just about anything.
It sure looked like she said it worked.
Sure, as much as any other option, yeah. And?
So why would she say that?
Maybe she's telling Tama that something worked.
Thomas shows up randomly when an event is about to begin to remove a water container from the ceiling, but then once he gets up there, he just stops moving and just holds himself there. So we can see the reflection in the iPad.
Or so his water bottle can finish filling up. You can see it filling up as he hovers there waiting for it.
This is the location. It's called the PWD, Portable Water Dispenser. Potable water dispenser. I knew that. And it probably is portable too, but not that good. So you just put whatever it is into the adapter, tell it how much water you want, and hit the button. It's pretty easy. Even I can do it.
This is why I believe that these astronauts are showing us these reflections on purpose.
Alright then, so what reflections are so important for us to see?
Once again, people in masks.
What's that supposed to be? To me it looks kinda like a plague doctor with his beak snapped off, or maybe an elephant, rejected concept art for a Sith mask, guy with a dick for a nose, I don't know. Unlike the other one, at least I can see how you might see a mask there with a little bit of squinting. A really silly and impractical mask, but a mask. So that's an improvement. I don't know why you think this astronaut would want to show it to you so bad. I mean, you'd think if the goal was to, creep you out, taunt you, they would have chosen something that looks less like a couple rectangles stuck together and more like an actual face. Or a white mask for whatever reason. We don't dress like that, you know, we prefer black. Actually, I just found a clip from another video where you show a lot more clearly what you think is a mask or a face or whatever, and it's totally different from what I see. That does at least look more like a face than my guess does. When you identify the object, it stops making any sense, as we'll see soon, but I can see at least how you would identify it as a face. But unfortunately though, most of the details we're seeing there aren't actually there. I don't know what kind of filters you put on this, but you do a fade in your video where you show the difference between the real image and your edited version, and it fades from having sharp lines everywhere to just looking like compressed blurry mush. Because that's exactly what this is, let's face it, a tiny little piece of a 720p video that shows a reflection of only the brightest parts of the room in a black iPad. The kind of detail you want is just not available. At this scale, even stuff like changing the scaling algorithm is going to cause differences in the details. But what'll make the most difference is the fact that you decided not to choose a frame when the object is moving as slowly as possible, and thus is as true to life in appearance as possible. No. You chose a frame where it's moving about as fast as it ever does, so it's maximally messed up by motion blur, compression artifacts, and whatever else. Why? Here's your exact frame. Now I'm going to play it back and forth over that frame at full speed so you can see how wildly the iPad is flopping around at that moment. And now let's go frame by frame so you can see how much the face changes with each frame. And of course another thing to notice here is that with Premiere's scaling and without your edits, this looks nothing at all like a face. I know where the face is supposed to be, I know where you want me to see it, I just showed it a minute ago, and I still don't see it there. Come on now, this is pathetic. And people might think that I'm going on too much about this one image, but I want people to understand that this is not some low-tier secondary evidence in your mind. Here's what you have to say about it in that video where you showed the edited version.
This is the best proof that NASA is lying, as far as I am concerned, that we have ever had.
If that's your best evidence, I don't even want to know what your worst evidence looks like. Jesus Christ. By the way, at first I didn't even notice that that frame you edited was from when the iPad was moving around quickly, because I didn't think to check that at first, because I just unconsciously assumed that everyone was smart enough to understand why you have to take a frame with as little motion as possible, at least when one's available. Just goes to show I can't assume anything with you conspiracy people, not even something as basic as that. I gotta stop being so optimistic about you. So let's figure out exactly what we're looking at here. Since we're seeing it in a mirrored surface, the iPad, I'll flip it horizontally to make it easier to identify everything. We're going to compare this garbage reflection in a black mirror against the Google Street View ISS imagery. Now this NASA video was made on March 3rd, 2017, and the Street View imagery is from February 2017, so luckily, for our purposes, they're going to be really similar. Probably not exact because they do move stuff around a lot to suit their needs, but pretty close because there's at most about a month of time in between. I'm going to boost the shadows and the saturation on the reflection a bit because it makes it a lot easier to see what little color information and dimly lit details we have to work with. Using Lumetri in Premiere, I'll set shadows to 55 and saturation to 130 and leave everything else alone. That'll make most of the scene look like total crap, but the reflection will look better. You've already seen the regular version, so compare if you like. Now when the video first starts, the iPad is reflecting that blue bar with green stuff wrapped around it. That blue bar is attached to a rack made of 3 big square vertical gray bars. And as he moves, we shift over from seeing the blue bar that's attached to the first one of those big gray bars to seeing the white pad that's attached to the middle one. Beside and probably a little bit behind that pad seems to be the bright metal tray on which this laptop is attached. It's turned on its arm so that the laptop's monitor is facing more towards the module entrance, that is, away from us. Behind the laptop, we can see that big red or orange tube near the entrance. Then the iPad turns down a little bit and faces what I would guess is one of these white bags with blue squares on it. It might be the same one that we can see hiding behind a bunch of equipment in the Street View, but higher up, pulled out a little bit, and without that equipment there at the time. Probably its position in this tour video Tama did is somewhat more accurate to how we see it in the iPad, although I don't think exact. They move these things around a lot. In front of that bag, we can just see the other blue handle attached to the third vertical bar. You with me so far? I hope it's not too confusing. I'm really doing my best here to point this stuff out in the video, even though it'd be, frankly, a lot easier just with my finger. So then Tomas swings his leg to the side, and we see two important features in quick succession. First, a bright rectangle that's probably the monitor that we can see through the entrance to the module, and then afterwards the illuminated tangle of wires beside it. Now the monitor's at somewhat of a different angle in the reflection than it is in the street view, but if we move into the entrance we can see that that's just because this is not fixed in place, it's a movable laptop. If you look really carefully at the reflection during this sequence, you can actually see the rounded corners of the hatch leading into the next module. And finally, you can see the dark lines along the top of the entrance. Now Tomas starts moving forward, and he's going to move forward at least a couple of feet, making everything in the reflection look a little bit bigger. The view swings off to the side, and we catch a brief glimpse of our scary mask man before we swing back to see the black laptop that's velcroed over the entrance and the light-colored panel that's beside it. We can even see one of the rivets in that panel because some light's glinting off it, which you can take as foreshadowing of things to come. We can see the straight line on top of the entrance with its characteristic dark line, light line, dark line pattern. We can even make out those little white strips of Velcro or whatever that cover some of the upper blue line. We take another swing to the side and we see a bright area that's crossed by a really thick line, which has just a hint of orange coloration. That's that big orange tube that we saw before, and obscuring that tube is the black clothing of our masked figure. We move up just a little bit and there's our mask in all its glory. So this is something in front of the tube from our perspective and kind of up towards the ceiling. What could be there? Well, we already know. We've already seen it. Let's go back close to the start. It's this thing, which, like I said, is most likely this laptop. If we rewind a little bit, we can even see the light glaring off the metallic tray that the laptop is attached to, and it's in exactly the same place I'd expect it if it's on the bottom of the laptop. So it would seem this mask is the laptop with some light reflecting off the corner of the monitor, which would explain the square corner of the mask, or headdress, or whatever you think that corner is part of, I don't care. There's just no way it makes any sense to interpret this as a person's face, I'm sorry. But if somehow you still think this is a Sith Lord behind the camera, he would be tiny and pretty much straddling that red tube. Pretty undignified for some sort of tiny, shadowy, evil figure. There seems like there might be some sort of bag or device or something like that on top of the laptop or in front of it that's in the way of the light, casting the shadow that results in only the corner of the monitor being illuminated, which would be why that object is lit, but the monitor mostly isn't. So if that's the angle of light we're dealing with, it has to be coming from this light. The other dark lines crossing the illuminated area would then just be the shadow of something sticking out of the object that's in front of it, or just of some random wires and other things. I mean, look how many things there are in this mess that could be casting shadows. I'm not even going to try to puzzle this out, because I know at least the laptop was moved since the street view imagery was taken, so who knows what else did. They're always changing things in there. The central point is that we know where the object's located, we know it has a square corner, and shadows from a light are a hell of a lot simpler explanation than some sort of, I don't know, satanic monster man with no distinguishable face and no coherent form. In this video from May 2016, you can get an idea of just how much the station changes over time. What you're looking at here is the same part of the Destiny module that we're investigating, and notice how even the big red tube wasn't there, and this was only 10 months before the video with the reflection. And here's a clip of Tomas giving a station tour 2 months after the iPad reflection video, showing a pretty different layout in the same spot again. Now we're going to leave our masky friend behind and see the last few details as Tomas exits the scene. Thanks to the slightly boosted saturation, we can see that this is very blue. It has to be one of these blue boxes on the ceiling. And since it has a bright white patch with messy cables right behind it, which is the wall, it's got to be the last of those blue boxes in the row. Kind of goes to show you that the laptop is pulled out quite a bit further than we see it in the street view, which is totally doable. It's attached to an arm. A little swing towards the entrance and we see that same laptop velcroed above the entrance that we saw before. And now Tomas starts to move too quickly to make anything out at all because motion is bad for detail, bling bling. The end of the mirror investigation. Now bling bling, everything I've done here, you could have done yourself. It might not have been easy for you, but it's entirely within your ability if you put your mind to it. If you want to know the truth, you investigate, you don't just leap to wild conclusions. So in the future, when you see something you don't understand, consider putting some careful thought into whether there's any information available that you could possibly use to figure out what it is. And if you try hard to find that information and you can't, there just doesn't seem to be enough information, consider those 3 magic little words, I don't know. That's my advice, take it or leave it, not like you're obligated to listen to anything I have to say. Figured I'd try to help you out though. Now, there's another video where you talk about this same thing, and I found that really late in production. It's the same one where you go on that rant about blocking everyone. It's also the same one where you show your alternative interpretation of the face, which I showed before. And it also includes the surprising claim that this iPad reflection has another face reflected in it. I'd love to get into that, but I'm way too late in production, it's way too late in the month, and this video is already way too long. I keep tacking more stuff onto it. It wasn't even supposed to be a two-parter, but it's gonna be. My videos always seem to end up like that, I don't know. I want to respond to it though, but as entertaining as that video is, I don't think it can carry an entire full-length video, so I think I'm gonna make that next month's Patreon exclusive instead. So bling bling, I hope I've alleviated some of your terror from thinking they are trying to spook you with a modern art version of Death from Darksiders 2. And for anyone who's wondering, that was a lot harder than the time I found that light pole. I have a Patreon.
I have an entire video made about this particular event.
I'll be sure never to get to that. But wait, is that it? So the bit about Peggy Whitson supposedly saying it worked that you never told us the point of, you were trying to imply that that was her telling Thomas Pesquet that the reflection worked? That he succeeded in showing some school kids a reflection off the corner of a laptop with some shadows of wires that a hyperactive imagination might possibly see an arbitrary face-like shape in, like I used to see in my bathtub tap as a kid. Man, if that's how they're passing the time, they must get bored up there. Alright, well I'm gonna split it here. Do me a favor and give this video a like, and subscribe, and sign up for my email list, or join my Discord, or something, so you get part 2 when it comes out. See you then!